Welcome to World Information HD. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible story of one of America's most fascinating coins, the 1944 no-mint Mark Lincoln Wheat penny. You might have seen a few of these old copper coins in your collection, but did you know that some of them could be worth thousands of dollars today? Yes, that small brown cent sitting in your drawer might actually be a hidden treasure. So stay with us till the end, because this is one of the most surprising and valuable stories in the world of American coin collecting. The year 1944 was one of the most significant years in U.S. history, right in the middle of World War II. America was pouring every resource into the war effort, and that included metals. The government was experimenting with different materials for coins, because copper and other metals were needed for ammunition, wiring, and weapons. Just a year earlier, in 1943, the U.S. Mint had switched the penny from copper to steel, coating it with zinc to save precious copper for the war. Those famous 1943 steel cents became known as the silver pennies because of their metallic shine, but they rusted easily and confused people who thought they were dimes. By 1944, the Mint decided to return to copper for the Lincoln cent. But this time, they did something different. The copper wasn't the same pure metal as before the war. It came mostly from recycled shell casings collected from military training grounds. Yes, you heard that right. The 1944 penny you hold might actually contain the melted remains of war ammunition used by American soldiers. It's a piece of history you can hold in your hand. These coins were minted in 3 locations across the United States: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The coins made in Denver have a small D mint mark below the date, and those from San Francisco carry an S. But the ones made in Philadelphia, the main mint, were issued without any mint mark at all. So, if your 1944 penny has no mint mark under the date, that means it came from Philadelphia. Now, most 1944 no mint mark pennies were made of copper, and more than 1 billion were struck, making it one of the most common wheat pennies of the 1940s. But here's where the story gets interesting. Not all 1944 pennies were created equal. Some have rare errors or unique conditions that make them incredibly valuable to collectors. Let's start with what makes the 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny so iconic. On the front side, or obverse, you'll see the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. Above Lincoln's head is the famous motto, "In God We Trust." To the left, you'll find the word, "Liberty," and to the right, the year, 1944. Flip the coin over, and you'll see 2 wheat stalks curving along the sides. This is why it's called the wheat penny. In the center, it reads, 1 cent, with United States of America below and E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, written across the top. Although these pennies were made for everyday use, some survived in remarkable condition, untouched by time. These are the coins that collectors dream about. A coin that looks brand new, with sharp details and a bright luster, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But the real excitement begins when we talk about errors, the mistakes that happened during the minting process. Some 1944 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. These are the legendary 1944 steel cents. They look silver instead of copper, and only a few dozen are known to exist. Finding one of those would be like striking gold, as they've sold for over $100,000 at auctions. However, even the regular 1944 no-mint mark copper penny can hold surprising value depending on its condition, color, and rarity of strike. Collectors categorize coins by grades ranging from good, which means heavily worn, all the way up to mint state, which means the coin looks as if it just left the mint. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Now, let's take a look at the details collectors notice. A coin with full, clear lines in Lincoln's hair, strong wheat stalk details on the reverse, and a bright red luster is considered a red mint state coin, the most desirable kind. Coins that have turned brown or have spots of wear are worth less, but they're still worth saving. If you have a 1944 no-mint mark penny, you can easily check if it's something special. First, grab a magnet. If it sticks to the coin, that means it's made of steel, and you've found something incredibly rare. If it doesn't stick, it's made of copper, which is the standard composition for that year. Next, look at the coin carefully under light. Does it have sharp details? Is the date clearly visible? Are there any cracks, doubling, or misprints? Even small variations like doubled lettering or a repunched date can make a big difference in value. For example, some 1944 pennies show what's called a die crack, a thin raised line caused by a crack in the coin die during minting. Others might have a lamination error, where the metal surface flakes or peels. Each of these rare details can increase the value dramatically. Let's imagine two collectors. One finds a 1944 penny that's been in circulation for decades. It's dark brown, scratched, and a little worn. That one might be worth just a few cents. The other collector finds the same date penny, but it's bright, with full details and no wear. That one could be worth hundreds. But if the second collector finds a near-perfect coin graded MS-67 red by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, that's where the magic happens. These coins are among the best preserved examples, and serious collectors will pay a premium for them. The 1944 penny also has a rich historical appeal. It tells the story of wartime America, when every piece of metal, every factory, and every worker contributed to the fight for freedom. The fact that these coins were made from recycled shell casings gives them a patriotic and emotional value that goes far beyond their face value. Now, let's talk about how to identify if your coin could be valuable. Start by checking for luster, the natural shine of the metal. Original luster means the coin hasn't been cleaned, and cleaning a coin actually reduces its value. Next, inspect the edges. A sharp, clean rim without nicks or scratches is a good sign. Finally, check for any unique marks or errors, like a doubled die, missing letters, or an off-center strike. You might wonder how people sell these coins for high prices. Usually, rare and valuable 1944 Lincoln pennies are sold at major coin auctions or through reputable dealers. Online platforms like Heritage Auctions, eBay, or Great Collections are also popular, but authentication is key. Always have your coin certified before selling. Even though over 1 billion 1944 pennies were produced, the few that remain in perfect condition or with rare minting errors are the ones that catch collectors' eyes. And as time passes, fewer pristine examples exist, which drives the price higher. Now, let's take a step back in time and imagine holding one of these pennies when it was brand new, shiny, freshly minted, and ready to circulate across a country at war. Soldiers might have carried these coins in their pockets, families might have saved them in jars, and children might have used them to buy candy or newspapers. Every penny tells a story, and every scratch or mark might have its own tale. That's the beauty of coin collecting. It's not just about the money. It's about history, art, and connection to the past. Each coin is a time capsule, a silent witness to the era it came from. And the 1944 Lincoln Wheat penny is a perfect example of that. Today, collectors around the world still search for this coin, hoping to find one that stands out, one that survived untouched for nearly a century. And when they do, the reward can be astonishing. So, if you have a 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny, take another look at it. Don't dismiss it as an ordinary coin. You might be holding a tiny piece of American history, and possibly something much more valuable than you think. Collectors have paid impressive sums for the finest examples of this coin, especially those that are graded highly or show exceptional color and detail. The market for rare pennies remains strong, as each year more people become fascinated by these small but powerful artifacts of history. So, check your coin jars, search through your old collections, and ask your relatives if they have any tucked away in drawers or boxes. That one little cent might be the key to a remarkable discovery. Because even though most 1944 Lincoln Wheat pennies are common, the rare ones, the beautifully preserved, brilliant, or error-filled examples, are the ones that can truly change your fortune. And the highest recorded value of a 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny, in mint state condition, has reached an incredible $31,876. Welcome back to World Information HD, the channel where every coin tells a hidden story, and forgotten treasures from American history are brought back to life. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating coins ever struck in the United States, the 1945 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny. At first glance, it might look like any other old copper coin from your change jar. But what if I told you that this unassuming penny could be worth thousands of dollars to the right collector? Yes, you heard that right. A simple coin from the mid-1940s could change your life if you know exactly what to look for. So grab your magnifying glass, settle in, and let's explore the remarkable story of the 1945 Lincoln Wheat cent, a coin that has survived wars, economic shifts, and decades of circulation, yet still manages to surprise collectors with its value and mystery. The year was 1945. America had just emerged from the shadows of World War II, celebrating victory and peace after years of turmoil. Factories that once produced tanks and aircraft were now shifting back to civilian manufacturing, and the United States Mint was operating at full pace, producing billions of coins to fuel a post-war economy bursting with hope. Among these coins was the Lincoln Wheat penny, a small copper coin that had already become a beloved symbol of the nation since its introduction in 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin carried the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure instead of a symbolic image of liberty. On the reverse, 2 wheat stalks framed the words, 1 cent, giving it the nickname we still use today, the Wheat penny. But while millions of 1945 pennies were produced, not all of them are created equal. Some carry minute errors, unique die varieties, or incredible preservation conditions that make them incredibly valuable today. Let's start by understanding the basics. The 1945 Lincoln Wheat penny was struck at 3 mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The ones produced in Denver and San Francisco bear the D and S mint marks beneath the date on the front of the coin. But the one we're focusing on today, the no mint mark 1945 penny, was made in Philadelphia, the oldest mint in the United States. Coins from Philadelphia during this period carry no mint mark at all, which often confuses new collectors. They see no letter and assume the coin is missing something. But in truth, that absence is the mint mark, the proud mark of Philadelphia's legacy. Now, how rare can a 1945 no mint mark penny be if millions were made? The answer lies in its condition, its color, and most importantly, its errors. Let's explore these factors one by one. First, the condition. Collectors grade coins on a detailed scale known as the Sheldon scale, ranging from poor all the way up to mint state 70. The higher the grade, the more perfect the coin, meaning it shows no wear, scratches, or discoloration from circulation. For the 1945 penny, most surviving examples are heavily worn because they spent decades being passed from hand to hand. But occasionally, a few pristine examples survived, coins that were either misplaced, stored away, or never released into circulation. These are the treasures collectors dream of finding. When a 1945 no mint mark Lincoln cent is graded as mint state, particularly MS 65 or higher, its value begins to climb dramatically. The brilliant red luster, often referred to as red-brown, or brown, in the grading system, also plays a key role. A fully red penny with its original copper shine can be worth dozens or even hundreds of times more than a dull brown one. This is because red pennies represent the coin in its purest, untouched form, as it looked the very day it left the mint. Next, let's talk about what makes certain 1945 pennies stand out even more: errors and varieties. During wartime, the mint was producing coins at an incredible rate, and with that came a greater chance for mistakes. Double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and die cracks were all possible outcomes of this intense production pace. Although the 1945 no mint mark penny technically shouldn't have a mint mark error, there are still some fascinating die varieties that add immense value. One of the most famous types is the double die obverse, where the inscriptions on the front, such as "Liberty in God We Trust," or even the date itself, appear doubled under magnification. These doubling effects were caused by a misalignment during the die creation process, and collectors go wild for them. Another valuable variant involves die cracks. tiny raised lines across the coin where the minting die started to break apart. These may look like random marks at first, but to a seasoned collector, they're evidence of a unique and limited run, often referred to as cuds or die breaks. Coins with such visible die breaks or retained cuds can fetch premium prices because each one is literally one of a kind. But error or not, what truly determines the value is preservation. A 1945 penny that's been kept in perfect, uncirculated condition, showing every detail of Lincoln's coat, beard, and the wheat lines on the reverse, is a rare sight. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion 1945 pennies, but most were handled roughly, used for decades, or even melted down later for their copper. That's why the few that remain in pristine condition have become small fortunes for their owners. Let's add a little historical context here. The 1945 penny was one of the last full copper cents before the U.S. Mint shifted to cheaper metals. Just 2 years earlier, in 1943, the Mint made steel pennies coated in zinc to save copper for the war effort. Those 1943 steel cents are famous on their own, but by 1945 copper returned. However, the composition wasn't pure copper, it was a 95% copper and 5% tin zinc blend, a standard that continued until 1982. Because of that, the 1945 penny represents both an end and a beginning, the end of the war years and the rebirth of normal American minting. It's more than a coin, it's a piece of national recovery and renewal. Now let's imagine you stumble upon an old jar of coins, maybe inherited from your grandparents, or found in a dusty attic. You pour them out, and among the pile of dull brown cents, you notice a 1945 penny. No mint mark. You clean it gently, or better yet, you don't clean it at all, since cleaning can destroy collector value, and you notice it still shines with a reddish tone. That's where things get exciting. You take it to a professional coin grader or send it to a service like PCGS or NGC. They carefully examine it under magnification, checking its surfaces, color, and strike quality. If it grades above MS65 red, congratulations, you're holding something special. Because such coins, especially those with unique errors or perfectly preserved surfaces, can bring astonishing results at auction. In fact, the coin market for wheat pennies has exploded in recent years. Collectors are paying top dollar for older Lincoln cents with impeccable condition or striking errors. Some auctions have seen record-breaking results where pennies once worth a single cent sold for thousands. This phenomenon is driven not just by rarity, but by passion. Lincoln pennies are America's most collected coin, and each year, new enthusiasts enter the hobby, searching through rolls, jars, and estates hoping to uncover their own hidden gem. The design itself holds timeless charm. Victor Brenner's engraving of Lincoln remains one of the most beloved in numismatic history, dignified, humble, and enduring. The reverse wheat stalks remind us of an era when agriculture and hard work defined the nation's spirit. Every scratch and mark tells a story of the countless hands that exchanged it, a small piece of America's economic and cultural past. Let's not forget the cultural backdrop of 1945 itself, the end of World War II, the return of soldiers to their families, and the dawn of the baby boom era. Each 1945 penny minted that year may have been handed to a returning veteran, spent at a local diner, or tucked away by a child starting a coin collection during the excitement of peacetime. That's the beauty of numismatics. Every coin isn't just metal. It's history frozen in time. When you hold a 1945 no mint mark Lincoln penny, you're holding a symbol of hope, perseverance, and victory. You're holding a moment when America was rebuilding, dreaming again, and stepping forward into a new future. And if you're lucky enough to hold one that's flawless, untouched by the decades, then you're not just holding history, you're holding treasure. Even small details can make a massive difference. A slight doubling on the letters, a tiny die crack, a red hue instead of brown, these are the subtle clues that separate an ordinary penny from an extraordinary fortune. Welcome to World Information HD, the channel that takes you deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and valuable collectibles that could be sitting right inside your pocket change. In today's video, we are diving into one of the most intriguing coins in United States history, the 1951 no mint mark Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, It may look like an ordinary old penny, but don't be fooled. This humble copper coin has secrets worth knowing, and some examples have fetched eye-popping prices at auctions. If you've got a jar of old pennies at home, you might want to dig through it after this video, because your 1951 penny could be worth far more than you think. Let's go back in time for a moment, to the early 1950s, an era when America was booming after World War II, when the average house cost less than $10,000, and a loaf of bread was just 16 cents. The Lincoln Wheat penny was already a familiar sight in every American's pocket. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this iconic coin had been in circulation since 1909, honoring the nation's beloved President Abraham Lincoln. But the 1951 edition carried something unique, a mix of post-war metal characteristics, minting variations, and a few very rare errors that turned ordinary pennies into miniature treasures. The 1951 Lincoln Wheat penny was struck primarily in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The ones from Denver carried a small D mint mark beneath the date, while those from San Francisco had an S. However, the ones struck in Philadelphia had no mint mark at all, which is why we call it the 1951 no mint mark penny. While millions were minted, not all of them were made equal. Some were struck more sharply, others suffered from striking errors, and a select few were preserved in pristine condition, making them highly desirable among collectors today. Now, before we dive into the value, let's take a closer look at its design. On the front, or obverse, you'll find the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the same portrait that graces the penny even today. Above his head, the words, "In God We Trust," stand proudly, a symbol of faith and national unity. To the left of Lincoln's profile is the word, "Liberty," and to the right, the date, 1951. Below the date, you'll notice there's no mint mark. That's how you know it was minted in Philadelphia. On the back, or reverse, are 2 wheat stalks curving inward along the sides, giving the coin its famous nickname, the Wheat Penny. Between them, the words 1 cent and United States of America are displayed boldly, along with the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many one. Though the design remained the same from 1909 until 1958, small differences in strike quality, die condition, and preservation have made some years much more collectible than others, and 1951 is one of those standout years. The composition of the 1951 penny is mostly copper, about 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This gave the coin a rich reddish-brown color when new. Over the decades, many have darkened or developed patinas, but coins that retain their original red luster are particularly valuable. In fact, collectors categorize Lincoln Wheat pennies by color: RD, for red, RB, for red-brown, and BN for brown. The redder the penny, the higher the value. Now, how many 1951 no mint mark pennies were made? The Philadelphia Mint struck an enormous 284,576,000 of them. That's nearly 285 million coins. With such a large number, it's easy to assume these coins are common. But rarity isn't always about how many were made, it's about how many survive today in excellent condition. Most of these coins circulated heavily, getting scratched, worn, and dull. Only a fraction were set aside and remain in gem mint state condition today. Those are the ones collectors fight for. If you were to find one of these coins in your pocket change, its face value is just 1 cent, of course. But if it's in great condition, say, uncirculated with full details visible, the value can climb quickly. Coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC often sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The higher the grade, the more dramatic the jump in price. For example, a 1951 no mint mark wheat penny in average circulated condition might be worth between 5 and 20 cents. Not bad for a coin that's over 70 years old. But if you find one in brilliant uncirculated condition, what collectors call mint state, the value can soar dramatically. In mint state 65 red, MS 65 RD, it can bring well over $100. Go even higher, to MS 67 or MS 68, and you're looking at a true rarity. the kind that turns heads at major coin auctions. But what makes some of these pennies so valuable? The secret lies in the combination of preservation, rarity, and visual appeal. The Philadelphia Mint used high-speed presses in the early 1950s, and many coins came out with weak strikes or die cracks. Perfectly struck examples, with sharp details on Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks, are much harder to find. That's why collectors pay a premium for coins that look flawless under magnification. Then there are the errors, the fascinating misprints that make coin collectors go wild. Some 1951 no-mint mark pennies are known to have die cracks, where the metal filled tiny fractures in the coin die, leaving raised lines on the coin. Others show off center strikes, where the design isn't properly aligned, leaving blank areas on one side. There are even double die varieties, where parts of the design, such as the date or lettering, appear doubled because the die shifted during the minting process. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Imagine finding one of these in your change, a small, copper-colored penny worth hundreds or more. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting, the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that any coin in your pocket could be a hidden gem. Collectors and historians also love the 1951 penny for what it represents. The early 1950s were a time of great change in America, the post-war boom, the rise of the middle class, and the beginnings of a new technological age. Pennies from this era aren't just money, they're artifacts of history, carrying the touch of millions who lived through that transformative period. If you happen to come across a 1951 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, the first thing you should do is check its condition. Handle it carefully, always by the edges, never the face, and look for signs of wear. If the coin still shines with a red luster and shows no visible scratches, you may have a valuable piece. It's worth getting it graded professionally. Coin grading companies assign a numerical score between 1 and 70, with 70 being a perfect, flawless coin. A 1951 penny graded above 65 can already be quite valuable, and one graded near perfect can fetch jaw-dropping prices. It's also a good idea to store your coins properly to preserve their condition. Avoid touching them with bare hands, and keep them in protective holders or capsules to prevent tarnishing. Even small scratches or fingerprints can reduce the value of a high-grade coin. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series ended in 1958, when the design was changed to the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. This means every wheat penny, including the 1951 issue, is now a collector's item. But the no-mint mark version stands out for its charm, condition rarity, and the potential it holds in pristine grades. Across the years, coin enthusiasts have shared stories of incredible finds. Some people discovered valuable 1951 pennies tucked away in old jars, inherited from grandparents, or hidden inside drawers for decades. Others stumbled upon them in rolls of pennies from the bank, never realizing that one of those copper coins could pay for a new car or even more. So, how can you tell if your 1951 penny might be worth something special? Start by looking at these key factors. First, check for the mint mark. If there's no letter under the date, it's from Philadelphia, the no-mint mark version we're talking about today. Second, examine the color. If it has a rich, original red tone, that's a good sign. Red-brown or brown coins are still collectible, but the bright red ones command the highest prices. Third, inspect the details. Sharp lines in Lincoln's beard, clear wheat stalks on the back, and crisp lettering are all indicators of a strong strike and higher value. Fourth, look for errors. Even a small doubling on the date or letters can make your coin worth hundreds of times its face value. And finally, consider getting it graded by a professional service if it looks pristine. Certification not only confirms authenticity but also increases buyer confidence if you ever decide to sell it. The beauty of coin collecting is that it connects history, art, and chance all in one. Each penny tells a story of the hands it passed through, the pockets it jingled in, and the years it witnessed. Welcome to World Information HD, where we explore the most fascinating and valuable treasures hiding in plain sight. Old American coins that might just make you a fortune. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most mysterious and sought-after coins in U.S. history, the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny. A coin that, to many collectors, represents the perfect blend of history, rarity, and beauty. If you've ever come across an old penny and thought, "It's just 1 cent, what could it possibly be worth?" you might want to think again. Some of these coins, especially from the mid-20th century, have sold for staggering prices, making lucky owners thousands of dollars richer. The 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny without a mint mark is one such coin that continues to capture the imagination of collectors, historians, and even ordinary people who stumble upon them in pocket change. So sit back, relax, and let's take a journey back in time to understand why this small copper coin has become a legend in the numismatic world and how you might be holding one of these valuable pieces of history right in your hands. Our story begins in the heart of the 1950s, a decade of transformation in America. The world was recovering from the aftershocks of World War II, and the U.S. Mint was producing millions of coins every year to keep up with the booming post-war economy. The 1955 Lincoln cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which didn't use mint marks at that time. These pennies were made from 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving them that rich reddish-brown tone we associate with classic wheat pennies. Now, what makes the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln penny so special isn't just its age or its design. It's the story behind how it came to be and the mysterious circumstances surrounding one of the most famous minting errors in American history. In 1955, something unusual happened at the Philadelphia Mint. During a night shift, one of the coin presses accidentally struck a batch of dies that had not been properly aligned. As a result, a few thousand pennies were struck with a dramatic doubling effect on the obverse, the front side showing Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," along with the date 1955, appeared to be doubled. The error was so striking that even someone with little knowledge of coins could notice it with the naked eye. This mistake wasn't discovered immediately. By the time the Mint realized what had happened, thousands of these double-dyed pennies had already been mixed into regular coin bags and distributed into circulation. Some reports suggest they were bundled into cigarette change rolls in the Boston area, meaning that many ordinary Americans came across them unknowingly. Imagine buying a pack of cigarettes or a soda back in 1955 and receiving change that today could be worth thousands of dollars. This era quickly became one of the most famous in U.S. coinage history. Collectors scrambled to find these rare double-die cents, and their popularity only grew as more people learned about them. But what about the regular 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny, those that don't have the doubling? Are they valuable too? The answer is yes, if they are in high-grade condition. You see, most coins from the 1950s went through years of circulation. They were passed from hand to hand, tossed in piggy banks, dropped in pockets, and left to rust in drawers. Finding one that has survived in pristine, uncirculated condition is like finding a time capsule, a perfect relic of mid-century America. The more perfect the condition, the more collectors are willing to pay. Let's take a closer look at the coin's design. The obverse, created by Victor David Brenner, features the iconic image of President Abraham Lincoln. This portrait has been used on the penny since 1909 and remains one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. To the left of Lincoln's bust is the word "Liberty," and to the right is the date 1955, without any mint mark beneath it, signifying it was struck in Philadelphia. Above Lincoln's head, we see the national motto, "In God We Trust." The reverse of the coin, often called the wheat reverse, features two stylized wheat stalks on each side of the coin's denomination, 1 cent. Between the wheat stalks, the words, "United States of America," are proudly displayed, and above it is the phrase, "E pluribus unum," meaning, "out of many, one." This design remained on the penny until 1958, after which it was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959. Over the years, collectors have become obsessed with finding high-quality examples of the 1955 wheat penny. Most of these coins are found in circulated condition, showing signs of wear, scratches, and discoloration. However, a few have been preserved in mint-state condition, carefully stored in coin rolls or forgotten collections. These are the ones that bring eye-popping prices at auctions. When evaluating the value of a 1955 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny, several factors come into play: condition, rarity, luster, color, and the presence of any unique striking errors. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, known as the Sheldon scale. A coin graded MS-60 or higher, mint state, means it was never circulated and retains its original mint shine. A 1955 penny in average circulated condition might only be worth a few dollars, but when you move into higher grades, especially coins graded MS-65, MS-66, or above, the price can skyrocket dramatically. Collectors love finding red RDE pennies, meaning the coin still has its full copper red luster from the day it was minted. Over time, copper tends to darken to brown, so a coin that retains its bright, fiery red hue is much more desirable. What truly fascinates people about the 1955 penny is not just its value but also its cultural impact. This small copper coin became an icon of American numismatics. It was featured in newspapers, collector magazines, and even coin shows. People lined up at local banks, hoping to find one in their rolls of change. For many, it was the beginning of a lifelong passion for coin collecting. Even today, the thrill of discovering an old wheat penny in your change sparks excitement. Though finding a genuine 1955 double-dyed penny is rare, every year people across the country continue to check their pennies, just in case lightning strikes twice. It's that sense of mystery and possibility that keeps collectors searching. Now, let's talk about the broader importance of wheat pennies. Between 1909 and 1958, billions of these coins were minted. They represent an era of craftsmanship and attention to detail that is often missing in modern coinage. Each wheat penny connects us to a time when pennies could actually buy something, when 1 cent mattered. For collectors, holding a 1955 penny is like holding a small piece of history that survived through wars, recessions, and generations of change. Many collectors also note the satisfaction of restoring and preserving these coins. Cleaning is generally discouraged because it can damage the surface and reduce value, but careful handling and storage in protective holders can keep them in beautiful condition for decades. If you ever find an old jar of coins, be sure to look closely before spending them. You never know what treasures might be hiding inside. The 1955 no-mint Mark penny continues to attract attention at coin shows and online auctions. Enthusiasts from all over the world look for examples graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, which certify a coin's authenticity and condition. This certification adds confidence for both buyers and sellers and often increases the coin's value significantly. Imagine coming across a small copper coin from 1955 that looks untouched, with sharp details and a brilliant shine. It might appear ordinary at first glance, but under the right lighting, you could be holding something extraordinary, a piece of U.S. minting history worth far more than a penny. In recent years, the demand for vintage U.S. coins has grown rapidly. Younger generations have begun rediscovering the hobby, encouraged by social media, YouTube channels, and online marketplaces showcasing rare coin finds. The 1955 Lincoln wheat penny continues to feature prominently in lists of most valuable pennies, not only for its famous doubling error but also for its clean, classic design and connection to America's past. It's fascinating to think that a coin minted 70 years ago still captures such attention. Whether you're an experienced collector or just someone curious about the coins in your wallet, the 1955 no-mint Mark wheat penny serves as a reminder that history is closer than we think. Every coin tells a story, and some stories are worth a lot more than a cent. Collectors often say that coin collecting isn't just about money, it's about the journey, the research, and the thrill of discovery. Each coin connects us to a different time and place. Welcome to World Information HD, the channel where rare discoveries, hidden treasures, and valuable coins come to life. Today, we'll take you deep into the fascinating world of American coinage, a journey through history, mystery, and pure luck. Because sometimes, what looks like an ordinary old penny could actually be worth more than a brand new luxury car. Yes, you heard that right. So, stay tuned till the end of this video as we reveal everything you need to know about the United States of America 1957 mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny, a small copper coin that has shocked collectors with its incredible worth and hidden secrets. Before you rush to check your coin jars or old family drawers, let's rewind time to understand where this coin comes from and why it has become one of the most talked about pennies in U.S. history. The year was 1957. Dwight D. Eisenhower was the president, Elvis Presley ruled the radio, and America was entering a new modern age. Yet, in the midst of all this progress, the U.S. Mint continued to produce one of its most iconic coin designs, the Lincoln Wheat Cent. The Lincoln Wheat Penny, also known as the Lincoln Wheat Cent, was introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, and not just any person, but one of the greatest leaders in American history. On the front, or obverse, of the coin, you'll find the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, can be seen subtly near the rim of some versions of the coin, sparking decades of collector interest. Now, the reverse side of the 1957 wheat penny features two simple wheat stalks curling along the sides, symbolizing prosperity and growth, surrounding the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. Above it reads, E pluribus unum, Latin for, out of many one. This design became a timeless classic and remained on the penny for half a century, until it was replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. But what makes the 1957 wheat penny so special? After all, millions of these coins were minted in Denver, indicated by the small D mint mark right below the date on the obverse side. In total, the Denver Mint struck an astonishing 1,051,342,000 of these pennies. That's over 1 billion coins. So how could something so common be worth so much today? The answer lies in the details: errors, condition, rarity, and collector demand. Let's start with condition, because in coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, known as the Sheldon scale. A grade of 1 means the coin is so worn you can barely tell what it is, while a perfect mint state 70 means the coin looks exactly as it did the day it left the mint, flawless, shiny, and sharp. The higher the grade, the higher the price. Most 1957 pennies you'll find in circulation are worth just a few cents, maybe a dime if you're lucky, because they've been handled, dropped, and rubbed over decades. But coins that were saved in pristine, uncirculated condition are a whole different story. Collectors call these mint state coins, and even small differences in shine, luster, or strike quality can make massive changes in value. For instance, a 1957 penny in average circulated condition might only be worth 5 to 10 cents. But if you find one that's graded MS65, which means it's brilliant, uncirculated, and nearly perfect, its value jumps into the tens or even hundreds of dollars. And when you move up to the elite levels, MS67, MS68, or higher, you're talking about coins so flawless that they sparkle like brand new copper jewels. These are the coins that serious collectors fight over. But there's more. Some 1957 wheat pennies have errors, tiny mistakes that happen during the minting process, and these are where things get really exciting. A double die, for example, occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between strikes, creating a faint doubling of letters or numbers. On a 1957 penny, doubling can appear on the date, the word Liberty, or even on Lincoln's eye or the motto, In God We Trust. If you spot a doubling error under magnification, your coin could be worth hundreds or even thousands. Another fascinating error is the off-center strike. Imagine the coin wasn't properly aligned when it was stamped. Part of the design ends up missing or pushed off the edge. Depending on how much of the design is off-center, these can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Then there are repunched mint marks, known as RPM errors. Back in the 1950s, the D mint mark was punched onto each die by hand, which sometimes caused multiple impressions or slight misalignments. If you look closely and see a shadow or doubling of the D, you might have an RPM variety, and collectors go crazy for those. There's even a rare error known as the die break, or cut error, where part of the die breaks off during minting, leaving a raised blob or mark on the coin's surface. These kinds of unique flaws make your coin one of a kind, and that uniqueness drives up its price dramatically. Now, let's talk about the history and legacy that surround this coin. The 1957 wheat penny came near the end of an era. Just 2 years later, in 1959, the U.S. Mint retired the beloved wheat design and introduced the Lincoln Memorial Reverse to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. That means the 1957 penny represents one of the last years of the iconic wheat design, a final chapter in a long and historic run of American coinage. For collectors, that alone makes it a nostalgic and valuable piece of history. Many people overlook these coins because they appear so ordinary, a simple brown penny that's been in circulation for decades. But what's incredible is that some of these coins have been preserved untouched since the day they were minted. Coin collectors and investors call them BU rolls, short for brilliant uncirculated rolls, meaning the coins are still shiny, red, and perfect as they were in 1957. These rolls, when opened today, can yield coins of stunning beauty, often glowing with their original red copper luster. Even more fascinating is how the color of the copper affects value. Collectors classify copper coins into 3 main categories: red, RD, red-brown, RB, and brown, BN. A coin with full bright red color, the same shine it had when newly minted, is much rarer and more valuable than one that has turned brown over time. So if you ever find a 1957 penny that still gleams with that original red copper tone, don't underestimate it. Let's not forget about the sentimental side of these coins. Many people who grew up in the 1950s remember these pennies as a part of daily life, tucked into candy machines, jingling in pockets, or saved in jars for good luck. Today, holding a 1957 wheat penny is like holding a little piece of American history, a reminder of a simpler time, when pennies could still buy something, and when craftsmanship mattered. Now, you might be wondering, where do people actually find these valuable coins today? The answer might surprise you. Some lucky collectors have discovered valuable 1957 pennies in old coin jars, inherited collections, and even change from thrift stores or yard sales. Others search through bank rolls of pennies obtained directly from banks, hoping to uncover a rare high-grade coin or an era penny that slipped through the cracks decades ago. It's a treasure hunt that still excites collectors all over the world. If you want to identify whether your 1957 penny is valuable, start by examining it under good lighting or a magnifying glass. Check the color. Is it still bright red or more brown? Look closely at the mint mark. Is there any doubling or repunching? Inspect the date and words for any signs of doubling. And most importantly, evaluate its overall condition. Does it still have its original shine, or is it heavily worn? If you believe your coin is in excellent condition, it's worth having it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. A certified grade not only confirms authenticity but can multiply the value of your coin in the collector's market. As with any collectible, rarity and demand drive prices up. But in the world of coins, condition is king. The 1957 Lincoln wheat penny is a perfect example of how something so small can hold such extraordinary value, not just financially, but historically and emotionally as well. Over the years, there have been auction stories that made headlines, where pristine or era 1957 wheat pennies fetched incredible sums of money from passionate collectors who recognized their rarity. These coins, when perfectly preserved, stand as shining reminders of the craftsmanship and history behind America's coinage. So next time,